acquired Habeas. Most of you might remember the Habeas relationship that we had in the past. That has just grown and become even stronger now that ReturnPath has acquired them. We actually used ReturnPath, many of their services before they took over Habeas, and so it's really the coming together of two of our main email certification authority and tool and utility and tool, the tools that we use for our metrics and analytics to come together under one roof, and we're very happy that that merger happened. And we also have a partnership with a technology company called Message Systems. They actually build the software that runs our email delivery engine. And so when your messages are going out, it's going out of our servers that are running the Message Systems software. And then you can't see it, I don't expect you to read it, but we have the relationships through ReturnPath and our old Habeas relationships, and on our own with all of the major ISPs. And I list them there, starting with AOL and going down to, I can't even read it. But that is what we can do for you to leverage the volume that we send, the relationships that we've built, the infrastructure that we have invested in for you, and all of the relationships with not just the big ISPs, but even a lot of small ISPs to benefit each of you to help you get your email delivered. Okay, so that's where Infusionsoft really can shine, is on the first two bullets. Okay, so here's an idea of the type of volume that Infusionsoft sends. Okay, that's the 14 million per week line right there. And this is going back, just maybe to December. And so that gives you an idea of the type of traffic that Infusionsoft generates, that you generate. And every time I go down to the colo and we're doing an upgrade or doing some maintenance or swapping out some backup equipment, I take a minute and I look at the equipment and the lights blinking. And I totally geek out on it, big time. I love it. I love to see all of the activity just going crazy on our row after row after row of servers. Because do you know what that means? That means that each one of you are being successful. Every blink of the light to me is success that's happening for each one of you. And I just love to see that, especially in the light of the so-called crisis that we're having. And I appreciate the positive focus that Clay and Scott and Jim Cecil have focused on and talked about. And it just makes me feel fantastic to see the success through these little blinking lights that I love of each one of you. Thanks. Thank you. All right, so where does the rubber really meet the road? Infusionsoft has superior email deliverability. As an average, we routinely float above the 90th percentile line. There's the 90th line right there. And you can see that, that we regularly even break 95%. If you went back a few months, I just put a few months up here as a sample, but we really do get the job done. So, sending practices. This is the third pillar of email deliverability. This is really you. So, now's time to start up with some questions, and let me introduce our panel first. First of all, we have Ryan Peterson. Wave your hand, Ryan. Ryan is our email systems manager. He is really one of the brightest email minds in the country, and that's no joke. No dramatic effect, just fact. James Thompson, go ahead and raise your hand there. James is our email compliance specialist. Now, you might think of him as a cop, but I kind of like to think of him as a constable. Kind of the friendly old gentleman that roams around your neighborhood, that makes sure that your gate is shut and that nobody is lurking around or hurting anybody that you care about that's in your family, the Infusionsoft family. Okay. Then we have Stephanie Fleming. She is our copywriter extraordinaire. If you get a chance, corner her and pick her brain a little bit. She's fantastic with what she does. And then, of course, Tyler Garnes. You met Tyler in the last session. He's our director of marketing. So with that, I have a bunch of things here that I could suggest, but why don't we just give it a shot? And well, first of all, before we do that, let's just kind of get a feeling for how important this is to everybody. How many of you in here use Infusionsoft as the heart of your business? Just raise your hands. Okay. How many in here use email as one of the primary marketing mediums in your business? Okay. Should be a good discussion. Okay. So let's get the mics and just go ahead and raise your hand, and we're just going to do the best we can with the time that we have left. Be sure and wave to me, who's ever in the back there, to make sure that we're sticking to the schedule. And let's just go for it.
Thank you. The one practice we've had is when we do the batch status reports, it's always saying that we're getting a really high delivery status of around 95 to 99%. But then when it comes to opening, it's only probably closer to the 15%. What's the distinction? When it says it's delivering, at what point is it delivering to the person's ISP and then getting stopped in their spam filter or their junk mail? Because a lot of the people we then call when they're saying they're delivered, and in their actual email, they're not actually seen it, etc.
So to answer that, there's kind of a two-part question, and let me address each one. The first one is the open rate, and the way that the open rate is tracked in the industry right now is you load a small image, and you're dependent on that person's client when they open the email actually loading that image. Well, you've probably noticed that those images don't always load, and a lot of clients have been turning them off. So open rates aren't necessarily an exact science. They're not exactly what the open rates for your clients are. So you can use them for trending, but you can't trust them for yes, this absolutely is the number of people that open my email. Now the second question revolves around deliverability, and I actually consider deliverability a naughty word because it has so many meanings. And when Mark showed our deliverability slides, I'll tell you what we test that on. We have what's called a seed list, and it's a series of seeds that we send emails to across multiple ISPs, usually 5 or 10 per ISP. So I have a bunch of AOL, a bunch of MSN, a bunch of Yahoo. We will send off a test email, and we'll see how many get delivered. Okay? So that's how we measure deliverability. Now, what you're seeing in the application is actually the messages that were sent from the system. So the 90-something% are the messages that the application identified as being messages we can send. They weren't bad addresses, they hadn't previously bounced, the people hadn't opted out. So it's different from the actual deliverability of a message as it shows up in the inbox. So does that answer your question?
It does. And when, so then the issue could still be on the customer side in regards to their filters, etc.
Okay. Definitely, it could be the customer's filter. And there's some things with our deliverability tests we can see with major ISPs like AOL and MSN and Yahoo, we can see how much is going to the inbox or the bulk box, but we test with clean content. And we do that to see that our reputation is good, but we can't test your content. So there could be content issues, there could be filtering issues and other things that could definitely affect that. You're welcome.
Is there a time have you guys studied like a time of day or week that's best for getting your open rates up? Is there certain times of the week or day that emails are more opened? I don't know if you've studied that or not.
You want to take that, Tyler? Yeah, there definitely is. Yeah.
Sure, I'll take that one. Is this mic on? Oh, there we go. Yeah, I haven't actually looked at that data in probably the last 6 to 10 months or so, but studies in the past have always shown that Tuesdays and Thursdays are the best days to send email, and typically in the mornings. So when we're trying to time something correctly, we'll send usually like 9 o'clock our time, which ends up being either 11 or 12 Eastern, depending on what the time schedules, because we don't change time like the whole rest of the world. So yeah, that tends to work best for us. We've continued to do that ever since we've seen that data. Like I said, I haven't seen research on that in the last few months.
Let me make one quick comment on that, because one of the powers of Infusionsoft that you can really utilize the software for is finding out how your market responds and when your market responds and tracking those rates. I always hear people throw out, this is the best time or this is the best way. Well, a lot of the numbers that we get come from large brands, Apple, Microsoft, etc. Well, those numbers may work for for large brands, your customers may be up at 1 in the morning. And that's what you can use the software to determine. The marketing really should adapt to your customers and not necessarily what's dictated as best practice, because best practice to one person is not to another.
The debate of having a lot of image, nice looking compared to straight text, I know that may be something that we're new in this, but we just want to understand what's the best for that. I know that I like getting images in email because it says more of a message, but what do you think?
Yeah, I'll take that one too. So the debate usually comes around whether or not those messages will have better or worse deliverability. What you're finding is, and you have to look at your target market again. If you're B2C, a lot of your addresses are going to be with an AOL, Yahoo, or an MSN, and they're probably going to be checked online. And if you do a good job with your HTML, which our built-in editor tends to do a pretty good job, they're going to render nice and they're going to look good. You're not going to have problems. Now, that said, text has been very effective for a lot of our customers. They enjoy it and they use it. I usually recommend on transactional messages, meaning receipts and things of that sort, you try and keep them simple. You don't necessarily have to use only text, but you want to keep those more basic just in case there are problems. And then also with images, you don't want to use a solid image. That's a major no-no. It's a common, that's actually why they started turning off images in email, in part, was because...
Ryan, why don't you describe what a solid image is?
I'm sorry, a single image, so that your entire email is the image. Okay, I heard some O's. Was you mean doing that? Uh-oh. Don't fire your marketing guy. All right. So my point being that is indicative of spam. Most of the spam filters do pick up on that. I'm sure you guys have seen that, where you see one giant image, you're like, well, what's the red X? And then you load the image, and it's XXX. And so you definitely want to avoid that. But other than that, HTML messages are becoming very common. Most devices can render them properly. And in a B2C world, I would say it's definitely an okay practice.
Let me just add to that test it. Do some split testing with the same type of promotion or customer communication with both a text email and with one that has HTML. And do that type of testing and get the metrics on it and your results, and then do the rest of the promotion with your best results there.
Hello? Let me throw one more thing into that. Spam Assassin and some of the other spam scoring systems will actually increase your spam score dependent on the ratio of image to text. So like when we run our test through return path, it'll tell us, oh, you got an extra 0.5 spam points because you had a high image to text ratio. So I think that's kind of what Ryan's driving at, is just test it and make sure stuff's getting through before you go send out a huge batch.
Yeah, if I remember right, an image only is like +2, which is horrible. So.
Question for the constable. I've been monitoring the email complaint report that you guys offer, especially with all the warnings that have been coming. And as a whole, the statistics, I think the tolerable range is 1/10 of 1%.
1 out of 1,000, so
correct, yeah.
0.1%.
Yeah. Yes. So, how statistically significant is a complaint of the number 1? For example, we could send 1,000 emails and one person complains, and we're in that range. You could send 10,000 emails and 2 complain, so you're well below your rate. However, maybe on an off day where there's only a few going out, you send out 30. And one person who may be having a bad day drags you into the spam folder, all of a sudden you've had a 3.3 complaint rate, which is pretty significantly high and skews your average significantly. I was wondering how much of a red flag is a single notification rather than just a percentage?
So for us in-house, it would not be a large red flag. Obviously, someone having a bad day or forgot they opted out. And the neat part about Infusionsoft is that collectively we can kind of absorb some of those minor hits that we can take. So really, it's not a big deal, and we understand people just have bad days or forget they opted in. We're talking more, you send 10,000 emails and you get 100 complaints, well, there's probably a problem.
Yeah, let me comment on that as well, because what we're facing, these are things that are given to us by the ISPs, and the way that the ISP manages it is they don't care. 1 in 1,000 is 1 in 1,000. So like James said, we're able to absorb a lot of that, and we have more